Table Talk is not your typical D&D TTRPG podcast. We are not here to run you through our whole campaign.
We're here to talk about everything else in the space of tabletop roleplay.
I'm your host, Alejandra Wilhelm.
And I'm also your host, Mariah Gresham.
And we're your tabletop roleplay girlies. And we are live with another episode of Table Talk. Thank you so much for joining us yet again. It is me, your host, Alejandra.
And me, your other host, Mariah.
And to answer for her crimes...
This is a trial.
Hold on.
Pray for us as we try not to talk over each other during the trial. Because Ollie and I have just broken that habit with each other.
Correct.
And now we've added a tertiary bitch.
Yeah. We have a very special guest for you, and a witness, and maybe a defendant.
She's a defendant for sure. She's not a witness. She is on trial.
She is on trial.
I can witness my own crimes.
Yeah.
That's not a
So you're like, I'm going to represent myself.
I'm not going to represent myself well.
But you can represent.
But I'm going to represent
It is your
myself.
constitutional right to represent yourself.
Listen, it's like one of those things whenever someone gets on trial and their legal counsel is actually just doing their job, but there's not a case there. And so they're like, I can do it better.
Yeah.
And decide to go up. And then they just crash and burn. And then they hand the case to the other opponent.
Then they're like, Your Honor, I'm simply just a girl and he ran into my knife 72 times.
Yeah. It's like, well.
It's like that one bit of, what's it? Fucking Zach Oyama, where they're doing the court case and he's like, yeah, I killed him.
It's like, I'm not going to lie. I killed that bitch.
I'm not going to lie. I did run him over.
Yeah, no, he died.
I killed him.
Yep. No.
Okay, who the fuck are you?
Oh, hi.
Yeah, this is
the long intro. That's okay.
5 minutes later.
Hi, my name is Bex. You may have heard of my crimes during Strixhaven recaps.
Yes.
I play a little Nepo baby, Kallista Bloodstone.
Yeah.
She is my child, my little war criminal, and my little socialite, and I love her.
You birthed,
she's
birthed her from your womb.
Yeah.
And apparently I am on trial for how many accounts?
Several. I've lost count.
Okay. Several accounts.
Oh, is it more than... I thought it was just like the one.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, there's been we all do our fair share of chicanery.
Yeah.
But I know there was like the one where I was like, oh, this is in fact the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back.
No, yeah. I will say, and I will give you kudos as being one of my most inventive characters and throw me for loopholes at least once a session, if not more.
I think I'm the reason you've stopped prepping as hard as you normally do.
I've had to.
Yeah. Just like, hey, what if it's all vibes?
If any of you are familiar with the look that Brandon Lee Mulligan gets in his eyes whenever Emily Axford or fucking, oh God.
Allie
Beardsley.
Allie Beardsley, yeah.
I've watched way too much to not have that on
It's
the tip
fair.
of my tongue.
Sometimes it just leaves you.
It just leaves you. That's the ADHD talking and will probably take over at other points. But the look that any of those people that Brandon Lee Mulligan gets, where he just staring down the barrel of a gun.
Just the fear and despair of like...
Or he's like, dear God, what have you done?
I got to have that.
Yeah.
Just a pure sense. Yeah, this episode is definitely going to be a tit for tat from DM to player perspective of when things happen, as they do, in a collaborative game where there is an untold number of possibilities that the game could go. And then suddenly your entire campaign you've planned is hanging in the balance.
Wait, am I the judge? If Bex is the defendant and Ollie is the prosecutor, does that make me the judge?
I think you're the judge.
Okay.
You're the judge.
I
thought
think
that's what this is.
Okay, I fuck with it. Let's go. Let's play court.
Your Honor.
I thought I wanted to be a lawyer for most of my life.
I was brought to tears.
I'm prepared. You were. It was late. Because I sit right next to Ollie at the table, and there was just a moment where you just were looking into the middle distance. I was like, hey, bud, you good? We all had a few 30 seconds of just silence, and I'm like, hey, we good?
And I was like, no, we're going to take a short recess. I'm going to pace in the kitchen for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I think I have a way to make this case shut and dry, case closed. My defense, I'm simply just a girl.
I'm simply just
a girl. And occasionally when I'm at the table, I get a tingle. I get a feeling. I get a whim where I'm just like, hey, what if I ask this question?
No, what you do is you take out a sniper rifle in the dark with military grade night vision goggles and from across an enormous field.
Calculating wind speed and
You
arcs
hit
and
a
shit.
hummingbird
It's
upon which everything was residing over.
Listen, if it's only hanging on a hummingbird, it shouldn't have been in the field.
That's all. That's also fair. That
should've
is
been on the
also a
field.
good lesson too. Of like, you have to have backup plans for your shit, right? Because it's like, if one fucking roll can break, kind of similar to like me trying to get Revna to recognize that journal, where I'm like, hey, how can I give this bitch more than one dice? To roll. And I was like, that was one where I was like, I need a backup contingency for this.
It's the little game that you play as a DM where there are things that you want your players to know.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you leave it up to rolls, it can be frustrating because you're like, but I want them to know.
Yeah.
So there's times when you're like, should I just give it to them? Should I just not have a roll involved and I just
Or you just
put
give
this out there?
give a little more
Yeah.
than maybe the roll
And
strictly
then there's
demanded.
times when you leave it up to a roll
Mhm.
and you're not expecting the odds to be what they are because you're like, what is the likelihood of a natural 20?
There's 19 other sides to this dice
There's so many sides.
that it could land
There's
on.
so many other sides. 19 others, exactly.
Hmm.
And then that nat 20 stares you in the face coldly.
And you're bad at lying.
And you're bad at lying in my case.
And it tells you the
Because
rent is due.
Ollie
rent-
does not have the neurodivergent masking skill.
I don't. I've never had that in my life.
So it's like, oh, some shit. Sometimes you will literally be like, here, peep over the screen at the travesty that has occurred, like the one you've rolled for fucking near or whatever. You're like, I need someone else to witness this.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh no, this has gone sideways.
Well, then maybe if you weren't a neurotypical, then maybe you would know how to mask a little bit better.
That's fair.
You're right.
Have you considered that?
You're right. I
Have
need,
you-
to,
have
I
you-
need to chug some mental illness juice real fast.
Drink
If we're
the
going to keep this mode.
For those listening at home, it has now gotten to the point where Ollie and I have had a very serious conversation where she's like, hey, bud, if you have a theory, text it to me when I'm 2 hours away
miles away from you.
and you cannot see my face.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because the way that I gave you a panic attack to the point of tears
Mm-hmm.
and a fast food drive-through
Oh yeah, the day of bad encounters.
just fully brought
Like,
you
hey,
to
I have a
tears.
question. And I'm white knuckle gripping the steering wheel,
Like,
staring
no.
off into the distance. And I'm like, don't move a muscle
Like,
in
no,
your
you don't.
face. I'm barely perceiving what you're even asking because I'm so concentrated on not expressing anything.
I'm surprised you didn't hit the car in front of us.
In a drive-thru, yeah.
You need to just start carrying like a scream mask around, and then you just put that on.
Every time you're like, I have
when
a
we
question.
ask
I'm
you.
like, yeah, sure, give me
Hang
a
on.
second. And then I just put it on.
Yeah.
I'm like, go.
No, for sure. What do you need to know?
What could you possibly want?
Yeah.
What is the question?
That could be a fix, high key. Tis the season. You could you could have your choice of masks.
You know, some people just carry around like a fan. You just have a portable DM screen that you can just pull out of your backpack, put over your face, and be like, yeah, no, for sure. What's up?
You know, a fan would be a good idea. To just be like, yeah, for sure.
Just a little
What's
thwack.
happening? No, okay, yeah, no. The context of it all is fuck. There is, and I do have another point to add to this later, which is very funny. But you know, we have our plethora of NPCs in
Yeah,
our Strixhaven
many
campaign,
NPC.
as many campaigns do. And there's like a particular character that I've recently just thrown in the mix who is genuinely at this point nothing.
Just a girl. Just going to
She's
school.
nothing.
Quite literally a throwaway.
Quite literally a throwaway character. I had like an inkling of a thought of how she might be connected to things down the road that I was like, yeah, maybe like I'll throw her in, let her develop, and then
Mm-hmm.
over time,
Emphasis on overtime.
like
Like when we're adults.
would develop into something.
No, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like also, Kallista, played by Bex, and Jack, played by Alyssa, both decided, like, you know what we should do with this bitch? Fucking kill her. For the grand crime.
Okay, hold on. We need to backtrack here a little bit because we're missing a little bit of context.
Are
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. No,
Yeah.
because my character statistically has always been the one that's like, let's talk about things.
Which was why it was
There's
shocking.
always a way to talk our way out of this.
You were the non-violent, like,
am. The-
confrontations solution person.
The amount
Those
of-
aren't words.
It's okay. We'll find it.
Yeah.
They can
we'll
edit it in
workshop
post. The amount of encounters that have just been ended because of a good role play role.
More often, more
often
than
than
not.
More
yeah.
than not. More than not. For this to happen is because Anya,
Yes.
played by our lovely Mariah, one of your
True.
Table Talk hosts,
Mhm.
her character, her godbrother, suddenly
God,
Okay.
brother's not a thing.
There's not, okay. Also, while we're getting things on the table, it stops at godparents. there's not a
Babe, I was born in the South.
there's not so is
We
I.
have God siblings.
I'm souther than all of you.
I have Cajun relatives. No. Like, there is no, like, help me God, brother, I'm scared situation. Where it's like,
Well, it wasn't sexual until you just made it
you
sexual.
have God. We've all made that joke. We made that joke earlier today. Like, we have God parents. And it's like, hey, these are backup parents in case your parents fucking die. That's it. That's all. Other than that, it's a childhood friend. Childhood friend.
You just sound like you're making excuses. Anyway.
Okay.
Her god brother.
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
Just randomly, while we were at a ball for one of my character's siblings, we came back. We were like, yeah, but so like, what's new in Trodain? And Ollie, our lovely god, our lovely DM, was just like, oh,
Kill's got a girlfriend.
this like major NPC that's like in your backstory. He's got a girlfriend now that y'all have
Which,
only
like-
like kind of met in passing and heard of.
She's like, yeah, the girl's like in one of Anya's classes. And again, it's like, okay, it's a college. It's a Strixhaven game. We're in college. Like, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Happens.
But in this campaign, we're like part of a little secret organization and need to like kind of take care of things as they come up or like be suspicious of people getting close to us. So it's like, this is now someone who is dating the non-brother of God of the main character.
You could just say childhood friend. It's right there.
Y'all lived in the same house.
Because my parents were dead. And
Tomato,
I had
tomato.
been died and resurrected. Like, okay, this is a different tangent that we're not going to
It's
go
okay.
down.
It's okay. Your backstory choices don't make him any less of your brother. Anyway, I'll die on myself.
No.
Thankfully,
prepared.
she hasn't fucked him and isn't planning on it, so that's fine.
You never know. Anyway, starts dating this mysterious young woman. And so my character, who's kind of like nosy, they're all kind of like Nepo babies.
We're all
they're all rich.
yeah, we're all nosy. We're all nosy.
It's just like, where did she come from? And so my character, being connected, one of like the 6 founding families, has some cousins that are just like also well connected. Maybe more so than others, maybe illegally, but that's not the point. That's not what we're talking about.
Neither here nor there.
Did she get her an illegal artifact so they could break out into a dean's office? Who knows?
Who's to say?
Listen, that's fine.
I'll never tell. Anyways, so she asked the cousin, she's like, hey, just like jokingly, she's like, what do you know about her? Just like as like a throwaway.
Yeah.
And then Ollie gives me a look.
Okay, but before that, Anya definitely just told you, like, oh, by the way, like, Killian and Tessa are dating. And, like, Killian and Anya had an argument about something, and where, like, they already don't like Killian, which, like, there are roleplay reasons for that, right? And then y'all were immediately like, what if we murdered her? And Anya's like, hey, I think maybe we shouldn't just murder a woman to upset Killian. That seems fucked. And it was Anya who is like, she's not a murder hobo, but she is the closest we kind of have to that historically.
It's also like dog murder, still super legal.
Yeah.
Super illegal.
Just being like, hey, maybe we don't ruin her life. Maybe she's just a person that can exist in space.
Your character does have the highest body count, and I'm not talking about sex.
Yes, she does, fully. She's a vengeance paladin. I know what I built.
I know what I did.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think the other issue was that you just kind of inserted this character around all these other rich characters, and she was a scholarship kid.
Yeah, God forbid.
And that's where the joke came from.
That was where the joke came from, that she had like
she had knockoff Adidas.
Knockoff clothes.
But Adidas.
Adidas. She had knockoff clothing, and we were like, no, I don't like her.
Right, but y'all jump to we should kill her, which is a big leap from.
We weren't actually going to kill her.
It was a haha funny kill.
It was a hee hee ha ha hui hui.
That was not clear. That feels like revisionist history is what that feels like.
I think that maybe we were just saying different things. And that's okay.
Yeah,
because it was a joke. And it was supposed to be a throwaway.
She is still alive, so that's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I just texted my cousin. I was like, hey, just as a hee hee, what do you know about this character? And I wasn't expecting anything to come of it. And Ollie just gives me a look. And she looks at her phone. And she looks at my phone. And I have a text message in our Discord channel for the campaign. That's just a message from my cousin Amron being like,
hey,
nothing is immediately popping up about her. She has no record.
Yeah.
I'm going to look into that.
Which is
and me
kinda
just being
weird.
like, Huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Weird.
mean? What do you mean she doesn't have a record?
Yeah.
The behind the screens is she rolled well enough to figure out that there's something weird, not well enough to just out her.
Right.
So I was like, we're going to settle this later.
And like, we're all paranoid. So we're like, yeah, exactly. Like, what do you mean she doesn't have? Is she a spy or whatever? And that, like, but that was even like us as people, like over the table. We're all like
dicking around
on the hunt immediately, which is fair because we are all very suspicious.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing to be known at this table is we love a bit.
That's true.
We do love a bit.
We have like our annual bit each month that we.
Oh yeah, every time we play, there's a new bit. I won't get into this week's.
You
bit.
get one. You get one.
So the bit this week has been the Hubble Princess Incel. So you have to raise one of your fingers into the air and you have to say, "Kitten, why are you not matching Daddy's freak?"
This has been our entire session.
To the point where it brought Ollie to tears.
Yeah, and I couldn't function.
This has been our entire weekend, and at some point I'm just like incoherent, screaming Christ, like please.
All I'm saying is somebody said Matt's Daddy's freak, and nobody is.
That was your one.
Okay,
that's your one.
Cool.
And you're done.
That's fine.
That's your.
I got it out of my system. I'm sure when we stop recording, it'll come back out.
Probably,
sure,
yeah.
And it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
That's okay.
Anyway, so we fast forward a little bit. We go a little bit further down the rabbit hole. Another session has come by. This is a month ago when we're playing. And I decided to follow up because there just like hasn't been anything about this.
Still check in.
Tezra, Avantis, nobody.
Circle back.
So I'm just giving my dear old cousin, Amryn, a call. And I'm like, hey, girl.
Dear old cousin.
Hey, boo.
Hey.
My mafia cousin. And I'm like, hey, any update? And she's like, yeah, let me look at this real quick. And so Ollie decides to do this really fun thing, which she did not have to do, and was roll against herself.
That was the roll heard around the world. But also,
It really was.
In fairness, you have the same problem I do, where it's like we both have a lot of NPCs, and they have conflicting goals and stuff. So there are opportunities where it's like, unless you want to just fully hand of God it and act like you're writing a novel and just make every decision for what's going to happen, if you want to also have an element of chance,
which I
you gotta
genuinely enjoy. And the style of play that we have in our world, I like it because it also causes me to like adapt to the situation. And it can lead us down paths just as much as like the randomness of y'all and your actions. Because I'm the hand of God, I can't have randomness in that way unless I'm making these.
It's your randomness is reactive.
Roll against each other.
Yeah.
And like, that's not everybody's vibe. And that's totally fine. Yeah. I personally enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, as a player's perspective, one of my favorite things playing TTRPG games is just the eternal thought that the dice tell a story.
Yeah.
And that I think us in particular as a group, we live for the nat ones. Like a nat 20 is great. Everyone loves to get a success. We all love to see that big 20 in the sky. But there is something so rewarding about a nat
about
one.
Just beefing it.
And about a failure, because there have been some truly great moments that probably wouldn't have happened in our campaigns.
If we weren't failing in that moment.
If we hadn't got a nat one.
Yeah.
Like some of our favorite interactions with NPCs have come from those failures.
Yep.
So like honoring the die and what happens and leaving it up to chance, I think, is how you get that authentic storytelling. There's a reason that you roll for something, and it's not just, oh, I do this, I decide this. There is a reason that you roll dice.
Yeah.
Is because there is an element of chance, which leads to greater stories that you as a stagnant person would not have otherwise been able to come up with in your own brain.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So the behind the screens moment that I had was I'm consciously aware of like, this is my first time running a campaign. They are all Nepo babies. They have extremely powerful NPCs at their disposal most of the time. And so there are times when they call a shot and I'm like, well, my contingency plan for that is like, it's got to be a nat 20.
Yeah.
If it's not a nat 20, you'll get something, but it won't be everything. And then I roll a nat 20 against myself and it looks me in the eye and then pointed a Glock and just blew my brains out. And I was like, yeah,
I don't know if you've ever seen the like Charlie Canny Mountain, the unicorn thing, but
Oh
he
my God, I
took that
love-
nat 20 took your kidneys.
Yeah,
It
truly.
did. It really did. It like
Charlie, you can't
full-
take people's kidneys, Charlie.
It fully threw a smoke bomb, shanked you, took your gallbladder, and ran.
yeah, and smacked me around a little bit at the end.
Carved your face off.
Yeah.
and
So
wore
I'm
it.
having a moment, and they're all like, "Hey, are you good?" And I'm like, "No."
I mean, like, there was dead silence for like a couple minutes.
And y'all are like, "Is it bad?" And I was like, "It's really bad."
Picture this. Imagine a 2006 Dell laptop that has been refurbished, not even new, not brand new.
No.
In the year
No.
of our Lord and Savior 2024,
Picture Windows 95.
Yeah.
that someone uploaded Sims 4 into
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and tried to get it to run it. You could hear that thing taking off like
Yeah.
an airplane is what Ollie's brain was doing, and you could see the fear of God in her eyes.
Yeah. Yes. And again, I've heard the argument of like, well, I'm the DM. I can say whatever I want. Yada, 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 yada. Again, the point is, I can't lie to my players. I have a stanky fucking face when it comes to lies. And so they knew my entire world was crumbling around me. They didn't know why. But I was like, cool.
We
cool,
knew,
cool,
we
cool.
knew,
And then
we
I was
knew
like,
why.
we took a break. I took like a quick 30-minute pace around while everybody's chit-chatting about the campaign. And they're like, still like looking over at me. They're like, are you good? And I'm like, my brain hasn't stopped going for the past 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I eventually found myself and I was like, okay, this is what I'll give you. It is a big give. It's a big lead, although that y'all still don't know what it like necessarily goes to
Mhm.
yet. And then I've tabled that in a shelf and I'm going to address it later because I can't deal with it mentally.
Yeah. Because it is hard where it's like you want to honor the nat 20s
absolutely wanna
and
honor
like make them feel good and substantial and like they're really something special when you roll a
Yeah.
20. But then it's also like, well, it is that battle because like at some point you're like, no, please, I want to word vomit and give you everything. And so it's like, well, fuck.
But not that.
Well, yeah,
That wasn't what I wanted to
You're like,
give
please
you.
not
'cause
that.
at the end of the day, this was an NPC who was just supposed to slowly integrate
Yeah.
and then become something for us to deal with 3-4 years
Yeah.
down
Like
the
a
line.
few years from now.
Like a few years real time.
Like we've been
real time and in game
Yeah.
because the way it runs.
Yeah.
exactly because we've played for about 2 years
Yeah.
and we're only in the first semester of our second year. And this is supposed to be something that wasn't supposed to be anything until after our characters
Yeah.
graduated.
Basically.
And I just, on a whim, was like, I don't like that bitch. I don't
Yeah.
like her. What's her deal?
You walked up to a random stranger in a mall and just absolutely fucking decked her upside the head and caused her to die. And then everyone's like, hey, that was Osama bin Laden.
Yeah. Like, damn, she got him.
Like,
It's like in the first 10 minutes of Scream, and I accidentally find the Scream mask in the back of fucking
Yeah.
Billy's back pocket. And he's like, roll credits.
yeah.
It's like, shit, you got me.
Oh God. But yeah, no, it's something that's also like, it's the biggest version of other things I've experienced while being a DM in the sea, where it's like, trust the process. Sometimes things are not going exactly how you had in mind, but you got to trust the process and that it'll lead somewhere. And y'all have made the joke of like, what if you just fucking kill her? And I'm like, the temptation is there.
Okay.
But no, like I want to honor it and wherever it's going to lead us down, because as much as like your failures or your nat 20s are rewarding, like there's a reason that 20 is there. There's a reason that this happened. And I
Right.
have to just put my faith in that.
You just have to, it just gets more complicated.
It's going to workshop
Yeah.
how it's going to come out.
Well, because how do you describe this phenomenon with the cabinet?
Oh yeah,
Oh, you're like,
I have a thing where it's like I have the cabinet behind me where I'm like when it comes to planning, I have the big bold points of the things that we'll eventually get to.
You like work in your apothecary shop and you have
Yeah.
all your jarred herbs.
Yeah,
behind
and I have
you.
a couple of random little instances and events that I'm like, I know I want this to happen. I don't really know where though, so I just kind of put it back there. And then as we go throughout the campaign, y'all will do things, and I'm like, you know what would be really good right now? This little bottle that I prepared a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, and then I
Mhm.
pour it on the table in front of all of y'all and watch you deal with it.
Yeah.
You got up, reached behind me,
And had a smash and grab.
grabbed the cup, and put it on the table. And I was my bottles.
You said fuck you in your bottles.
My bottles are everywhere.
She like went to the door of your mind pals, kicked that bitch open, and just started swinging with a slugger bat.
It doesn't. There was a cabinet. It had so many pretty bottles, and I saw a flower, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty. I want to look
There
at
was
it."
a fly on one of the bottles, and you were really just trying to get the fly.
And I just wanted to get the fly.
Yeah.
And I flicked the fly. The bottle knocked over. It knocked over every other bottle on the shelf. The weight distribution caused the shelf to fall, smashing all the shelves beneath it.
How crushed me under. I'm currently
and then
dead
the roof,
underneath the
the roof
cabinet.
fell in.
And then a cow fell through the roof. Like,
But listen. There's at least 2 shelves above it that were untouched.
yeah, a single sticky note that says Elf Island ?
That is the other funny one because I remember like you and I discussing that. I think it was like right before we were like hanging out to record a set of episodes.
Yeah.
Because like Bex had a moment where she was like, her character didn't have magic at that point, and she's like, we were going to a ball, and she's like, hey, what if I just reveal that I don't have magic to like God and everyone in front of my parents?
Yeah.
Yeah. For context, I in this campaign, I'm playing a third party class because I love D&D. I love the like official content, but what I really, really love is third party creators. Like that stuff's like crack to me.
You're like resident third party content.
I feel like I own more non-official D&D stuff than I do actual official D&D stuff. And one of them is this thing called The Mystical Tome of Tattoos. It is a glorious, beautiful book. Most of the time, I believe you have to get it on Drive-Thru RPG. This is not sponsored, by the way, at any means.
But
it could be.
But hey.
This could be you.
But hey. And in it is
could be what you're playing.
Exactly.
It's
a massive tome of like 300 pages of magical item tattoos, like how they introduced in Tasha's. And in the book, they introduce a class called the Tattooist. And instead of normal magic, they are able to perceive spells in the moment, and they then need to make a constitution check. It is base 10 plus whatever the spell level is. So say it's a 3rd level spell, you need to hit at least a DC 13 on a con check. And for this class, con is their casting modifier because it's tattoos. Their ink and blood is the nature of their magic. And so with it, we had decided that my character came from a family of magic users. They're the prodigies of the Strixhaven University, and they, year after year, generation after generation, are some of the top students and founders that go to this school. And my character is born with no inkling of magic, and they try to go through different routes. They try to even hit up their aunt, who is the head of like the Celestial Library, to see if her patron would be willing to make a patron pact with her. They try prayer, being a cleric or even like a half-caster with a paladin. They try like nature with druidic magic and trying to be maybe even a ranger to try to get a little bit half magic. They try the wizarding, it's not working. They try the sorcerers, it's not working. Nothing is seeming to give her magic. And in this world, while tattooists exist, they are considered a taboo form of magic because of just the nature of it in itself.
Yeah, especially to like very traditional high-born families. Like I think like regular people don't really give a shit, but like your very uppity high-born parents are like, that's not a valid way to cast.
Yeah, it's like a fucking country club. Mom and dad having their child be like, I want to be a graffiti artist.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah.
They're like, no, you're going to do ballet.
They're like, while that is a valid form of art and is successful and is pretty, no child of mine will be operating this way.
Vandalizing buildings.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, literally.
Because you know it's a crime.
Yeah. And so her older brother, who she had like recently gotten close with, was having to go through a crisis, and they were needing a distraction, something that would lower their familial value to maybe get him not engaged. So she threw out a random question that when I said it out loud, I could see Ollie's world crashing around her in that moment as she realized, oh, this is something you might do.
I also had a moment because I was like, okay, my character has alliances with like some of the Fae. Like Ollie is like very big NPC, like self-insert NPC Reyna and like the Feywild and everything. And then she has elven grandparents who are royalty in the elven realm. So I was like, okay, listen, maybe like Reyna's husband, Oak, could just fly in the fantasy Apache helicopter. Reyna could parachute down, bamf us out. We go live in the elven land. Like, I was also working through, because I was like, this is no longer a Strixhaven campaign if that happens.
For me, it's one of those moments where you're like, a player says a thing, and you're like, I guess it's a viable option. Then you think about it for 2 seconds longer, and you're like, you start seeing the dominoes line up.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, those dominoes are getting kind of big. Wait, those dominoes are like the size of buildings.
Yeah.
Okay, everything's coming down. Okay.
Wait, that's a domino city, and you're Godzilla with this choice.
Yes. So I was like, and like we've referred to it on this podcast before, and I was having to contend with, again, players have freedom of will. They could do whatever they want.
Totally.
My job is not to necessarily dictate the story the way that I want it to happen. My job is to facilitate, and that's how I see it.
Yep.
But then I was also like, I don't know that my player sitting on this side of the DM screen knows exactly how bad that would be. And I was like, okay. And I sat you down, and I was like, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this.
Yeah, because this was fully... We've already described the little apothecary shop and the cabinet of bottles of ideas. This was her holding every single bottle that was in that cabinet.
Over a fire.
Over a fucking bonfire.
Yeah.
Tears streaming down your face going, is this what you want? Is this good for you?
Like that?
It's like, if you want me to drop these,
I'll do it.
But do you see that cabinet? Because all that's in that cabinet is a cobweb and a sticky note that says Elf Island?
A spider sticking the sticky note to the wall with
Elf
web.
Island and this little frogman named Griggles.
Yeah. That we had introduced and gotten rid of.
Yeah.
Very early on.
Yeah.
Because it was one of those things where it was like, okay, because the consequence of this action is that your character outs herself as a non-magic user in a high magic setting in her high magic family, and then gets fucking yoinked
in court in front of every important family in the city.
Yeah, in front of every royal, in front of every founding family, in front of the queen herself.
Yeah.
We have a little Rapunzel reenactment where you get locked in a tower.
Takes the dirtiest piece of laundry her family owns and throws it at the queen's face. In front of God and everyone.
I shit in her lap. Like, it's not great.
No, you shit in your parents' lap. I don't know that the queen I'm gonna be like, that's juicy, but I don't really know why you expect me to care that much.
Kallista truly would have shit in a salad bowl and asked her parents to toss it.
Yeah, in front of everyone.
Yes.
And so it becomes that moment of like, okay, if you do decide to do this, there are two choices. One of them is that you go into maximum security prison. They cast a 9th level mind wipe on the entire room to make them attempt to forget what just happened. And your character is never seen again. Or your party members and your aunt are going to have to SEAL Team 6.
Break you out.
Get you out of there. Get you into the illegal Feywild. And we run an entirely different campaign.
And if that's what you want to do.
Which we can do, baby.
We can run it. Starts revving that fucking V8 engine, and I'm ready to go down this highway with the papers that I wrote flying out of the window.
Like, I know Ali's written the Feywild, like, Rhaeda's lore. Listen, Anya's been there before, not unaccompanied.
I do have that on lock, so we wouldn't be starting from scratch.
But I could find one of Rhaena's widow guardians, and we could go from there.
Which I will say, and I don't want to speak for all of the players, and you can chime in on this as well. I truly do appreciate that was an option.
I do too, yeah. Like, my immediate reaction to it too was like, well, if we want to play, we can fuck.
Yeah, like I'm putting my hair up. I'm getting on the go boots. Like,
this wasn't meant to be a combat heavy campaign, but now
it's like
dungeons.
It's like
fuck them classes for real. Let's go.
Like, I'll drop all the bottles, but we're gonna have to take a lunch break, and I'm gonna have to find some battle maps.
Yeah. You're like, I gotta go back
a whole lot of minis.
Yeah, which is
some shit.
Truly great. And for anyone who is listening, I would implore you. Obviously, every table is going to be different.
Yeah.
Obviously, every DM style is going to be different. There's no wrong way or correct way to play D&D. But as a player, from my personal view, I would be hard-pressed to find a DM style that I like more than someone who is willing to do that.
Yeah.
Because that is a ride-or-die DM, and I think it gives you a little perspective that obviously the DM's fun is important. As much as the players. Like, this isn't just like a 5v1. One person is just the rule master and that's all they do. And they get to watch everyone else have fun. But for having a DM who would look at a situation like this and be willing to ride that roller coaster with you and still have fun.
And it's like, I'm willing to let you make this choice. I want you to make it informed. I want you to know.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to say the thing thinking it's totally okay. And then a bunch of shit happens. You're like, how did we get here?
Yeah. You don't want like a ooh, gotcha moment.
So I was like, hey, here's the information you need about this. I genuinely think your character would know enough to be like, if I say this in front of God and everybody, some shit's going to happen.
Which, full context, she did not. And me as a player, even though I was throwing that out there, was not in the works, was not something that I legitimately was going to do.
You were just brainstorming.
I was brainstorming. And I think my character, while this is like a nuke of an option, while my character in that moment would feel compelled to say it and would be compelled to even consider it as an option, me as the player, I knew that it wasn't. I knew that that was a non-starter and was not something that would work. I knew it would upset not only the status quo, but also the character that she'd be doing it on behalf of. But I think it did lead to some really good roleplay moments and actually led to a scene that had both you and I, Ollie, crying.
Yeah.
Because of the emotional sort of genuineness that came from that moment. So it was like, yeah, I threw a nuke on a table. I wasn't going to press it, but I was thankful that I had a DM who was ready to hold my hand once I had.
Yeah.
Which I think is
and not
insane.
Be like, you didn't do anything wrong. This is just, we've just stepped off of one boat and gone to another one.
Yeah, we're doing a different thing now.
Yeah. And that is fine. Yeah. And like the initial panic of that moment, the instinct was there to be like, do I hand of God this? But then like after I'm sitting with for myself with a moment, and again, it's that point of like, I've been a player on the other side of things, and I've had the want to do something and had a DM just flat out tell me no. And that's not good. And that doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
And so I was like, how would I want to be approached if I was trying to do something about my character or whatever?
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I would just want to know the context.
The stakes.
I don't need to know like spoilers, but it's like, I'm telling you the information that I think your character would know of once this thing goes into action.
Yeah.
And understand that's where it's going to go.
Yeah, which I think brings up a really interesting thing that sometimes people don't think of when they think of improv, which everyone, whenever you think of improv, the number one golden rule is yes and. However, there is a secondary rule of improv that is just as valid that people don't necessarily always think of and is just as important to have in your tool shed is the concept of no but.
Right, yeah.
Because there are situations where someone says, I want to do this thing. And you don't have to say, yes, and we do it. You can say, no, let's not do this. However, but here is what else we can do. Here are the other options. Here is why this may not work as an option. Because, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's like being 6 years old again. And you have a very stern dad.
Yeah.
You want to go outside or play in the street or eat candy for dinner. And it's the difference of having a dad that just says no. And you try to question him, he goes, no.
And you're like,
I said no.
And
he just says
I said so,
no.
Yeah.
And it's the difference of then instead having an adult sit you down and say, I'm going to say no. Here's why I said no.
Yeah, like explain it.
Yeah.
And like, so yeah, that is good. And like, we've talked a lot here about like collaborative storytelling. And like a lot of it too is like you as the DM always have the most information about the world and the game and the mechanics and all of that and how things are going to affect other things. And I think sometimes like we've kind of been in situations where it does feel a little bit like there is a role sometimes for like setting a narrative trap and seeing if your players set it off. And like that can be fun and satisfying. But it's different if it's like, I'm going to set a trap so I can say, ooh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
And it's like, that feels shitty because that's more like you as a person who's running a game going against your players who are playing the game. That's not the characters going against each other. And there is a big difference.
Yeah.
And so it's like making sure that everybody understands the potential consequences for things is very important. And then it's like, you can do largely whatever you want. But if you do certain things,
then I'm also
then it will also behoove me to do certain things. And that may have results that are complicated. And it's like, if those are things that we've all agreed willing to explore and sit with and wrestle with, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's
But if that's not where you want to go, like now is the time to make a different choice.
It is that element of like, even though like, you know, you should always have a session 0, get a lot of communication out on the front end about what you're wanting to explore and all of those things. It is never at any point too late to be like, hey, pause for a second. Let's have a little conversation or like post session once you've like mulled things over and stewed in them. And like, you're like sitting in the corner of your room with a 1,000-yard stare, and you're like, I might have to have a conversation about this or else I'll die. And just be like, hey, can we talk about this and see where we're at? And if like, if we're willing to move forward from there, then I'm like, I have it good on my conscience that I'm like, I've told you what the repercussions will be.
Yep.
I'm okay with pursuing this route if we do it. But then at that point, the choice is yours, you know?
Yes.
Instead of me feeling like, I knew the bullshit that would happen. I didn't tell you. You make the decision anyway. And then down the road, everyone's like, this isn't what we signed up for.
Yeah.
I'm driving my illegal car, getting pulled over the cops, looking at you being like, why didn't you tell me not to steal this car?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Why didn't you tell me to stop?
Exactly. I'm like, my player signed up for a Strixhaven campaign.
Yep.
And if this happens and a couple months down the line, they're like, hey, why are we fugitives in a
Why are we on the run? Yeah.
Why are we enacting fucking Captain America Civil War right now?
Why are we trying to get diplomatic immunity?
How did we get here? What was the tipping point?
Yeah.
Why am I on trial for Geneva Convention war crimes?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was definitely a moment of like, no, I gotta like not only come on this podcast and talk to the talk, but I do need to actually walk it and
for sure.
you know, do what I preach kind of thing. The one very funny thing that kind of came up from this, which I love, is that I made a cute little post on Threads where I was like, hey, is there like a DM support group?
Yeah.
For when things happen.
They've been victimized by their players.
Yeah. When your player finds out something about whatever, and like, it was something to the effect of like when the player arc just starts getting fucking thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And, you know, lots of people were on there giving like great advice. And then there's like one account, I'm not even going to give them the sake of me.
I don't remember who it was.
I don't remember who it was, and I blocked them because protect your fucking peace, bitch.
Fair enough.
But they were just on there like, this is what's wrong with like DMs nowadays. And basically said something to the effect of like, you should never pre-plot a story arc or anything.
Which makes no sense.
No. And so I was like, hey, bud, are you good?
Yeah.
And I was like, it felt like they were getting on they thought that I was trying to like railroad you, and then you know, did what players do and went on. I was like, that's not what this was.
No, they thought they had a good thought when they were an idiot. That's what happened with that.
And I was like, and I tried to be like, explain. And I'm like, no, like, that's not the situation. Like, this is what it really was and stuff. And he's like, no, like, you should never be planning an ending. That's the problem. Like, there should be no arc. There should be no whatever. And I was like, you know, this is a storytelling.
It's like, so y'all just sit at the table,
right?
You just sit at the table with your dicks in your hands? Like, what do you do?
Like, no plan, no nothing? You just fucking...
Like, I am a pretty heavily improv DM, but, like, I still have plot shit that I'm building toward.
Yeah.
I'm just not married to how we get there or what happens with it when we do.
You and your couple of goons just want to sandbox a world with nothing pre-planned, and you just be bought from village to village with nary a thought in mind.
Just oops all vibes.
I mean, like, there is, like we said, there is no wrong way to DM. Like, if you want to have your campaign just be a series of one-shots that you came up with by throwing a dart at a napkin in a coffee shop,
then sure, yeah.
Then go for it.
That works for you.
That's great. Because, like, the other end of that is people who are trying to run and DM games who should realistically just be writing a book.
Yes.
And like that comes in
for sure.
Like to play sometimes, not only with DMs, but with like characters and like player characters too.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey babe, this is a storytelling game. This is a collaborative storytelling game where anything can happen, and we roll dice to facilitate and see what happens.
Yeah, and it's like, it can be also like when you are really invested in a game or you're invested in a character, like you spend a lot of time maladaptive daydreaming about them. Like, it can be hard to relinquish that control sometimes, but it's part of the fun of it.
Yeah.
And then, if you want like just also go write a book. That's valid.
Yeah.
That's literally what I do.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm not here to criticize anybody's like style of play, but it's like, listen, what works at my table is specifically, we have loose ideas of concepts of a plan.
I have an inkling.
I have a concept of a plan.
I hate that that's so good because of the source of it. It's like, that truly is how it be.
Terrible.
Well, because some of the best advice that I think I've ever heard given or seen the effects of, and like I haven't been playing D&D for like 20, 30, 40 years.
None of us
But like I've played in like a number of different mediums. Like I've done Mutants and Masterminds where like the rules are a lot different. I've done a Pathfinder one shot. Like obviously we've done a little bit of Vampire the Masquerade. We've done D&D. I even was a drag entertainer and did like dungeons and drag performers where we had to do a very similar thing. And like the medium is always different. But the number one advice that I've seen given multiple times whenever it comes to storyboarding and planning is to have those bottles and have those main ideas, but don't connect them.
Yeah.
Don't tie a string to each one, planning for them to go perfectly in a line.
Yeah.
Because that is where I think the trap is.
Yeah, because you stress yourself out and you spend a lot of time and you're like, why have I spent all this time? Like, it's all gone now. It's like, well, it's not. It's just you're in between strings that you really would have been better served to not have at all.
And for me, specifically, I mean, like the contrarian point of like whatever the fuck that guy was going on in that post is like, no, the way that I get y'all invested in my world is I am actively plotting arcs for your personal character growth that will be interwoven into whatever the fuck happens in our game. And
it's very collaborative.
It's super collaborative. And again, it's that metaphor of like, I know the things about your arc that are going to happen. I don't know the order. Sometimes things are going to go all over the place or whatever, but I know it's eventually building towards some kind of point. And then, whatever happens in that climactic point will be what it is.
At the end of the day, D&D is a skeleton that the British found and put together however they found it needed to connect.
Yeah.
They found the connections.
Put it in a box and ran away with it.
Exactly. It may look like a fucking monstrosity, and a historian down the line is going to be like, how did you get this animal?
Yeah.
Or like,
how did you get this?
Where did this come from?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can
skinny.
Exactly. But you can still say, that's a skeleton. Yeah. That was put together. I found where it connected.
Yes.
I'm not saying that the British should be putting together any more fossils because, like, dear Lord.
We should all probably collectively stop just finding and running off with
old shit,
random fossils and bone friends that we find in the earth. Generally, I'm in team put it back and cover dirt over it.
Yeah.
I'm in team mind your business.
Put it back or give it back to the people that it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to say, I think it's still so phenomenal that I'm able to look through your cabinet in occasion.
Yeah.
And while you may be smacking my hand and hissing at me to get back, you do still allow us to play.
Yeah, it's like part of the cabinet has like a glass front and we can see some of the bottles and then other bits of it are like fully boarded up. So it's like we can't see those. Those are secret bottles.
Yeah, sometimes I want to play like a little game of burlesque with that glass cabinet. I'm like, ooh, look here. And then I accidentally tip it over on myself.
Yeah.
I'm a child who saw the bottle of Hypnotic in the back and was like, why is it sparkly?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's a part of the game, and it's just as much of an element of like for me, it's where I still get to feel like I'm actively playing. And whatever that nat 20 results in, it's not the end all be all of the world or whatever. Maybe y'all solve things a little bit faster than I originally intended, but you also like you graduate and you have a whole fucking world ahead of you. The other fucking like literally yesterday, Alyssa was like, what if I graduate and we don't join guilds? And I'm like, fuck it.
All right.
Like, what do you want to do? And she's like, I want my host club to go into like a legitimate business. I'm like, okay.
Like, I'm not your mom. You can have an alternative career.
I mean,
you can be a YouTuber.
It's a big city with a whole bunch of other industry.
Exactly.
There's other cities and kingdoms and places to go and be. And I'm like, for me, genuinely, once y'all graduate, like I've suggested the idea of the guilds and stuff, but like if y'all really want to go do your own thing, be fucking independent mercenaries, you want to run this host club business and do your spy network shit, whatever you fucking want to do. Like I'm down and game.
Which is great because, like, on the flip side of me ruining your little cabinet of curiosities, there have been some really interesting story beats that would not be possible had moments like that not been possible. And I think the one that I keep coming back to, and one of my favorite ones that has happened, was my character Kallista going after another one of the royal family's sons who was not on the table.
It's also my favorite thing that you've done.
Yep.
Because she comes from a line that is a half tiefling, half ASMR. They breed exclusively in the two because they're in this world. One of the lore that we came up with is Fierna herself ended up falling in love with a archangel. I forget what they're actually called. And you do a solar.
Oh, yeah.
And while they're not technically supposed to be able to breed because of the celestial infernal energy, the mating of the solar and Fierna, because it was such a consecration of power, the earth itself that they laid together on top of together created a new mineral, bloodstone, which is what the bloodstones are named after, being this sort of like combining of this. So her entire generation after generation, millennia, has come from the joining of specifically these two. And Kallista, being the youngest of her family, all of her older siblings have already been courting their respective tieflings or ASMRs, saw this little smoke genasi, who was
just this little guy in the corner.
Just little guy.
Just this little guy that she saw another person in this courtroom in this Bridgerton-esque era who didn't care about power, who didn't want to be out there getting dance cards, pleasing the mamas, trying to...
Seeking the diamond.
Yeah. And something about that clicked for her. And she went over. She introduced herself. They had a dance. And it started a domino effect that has somehow gone from her approaching a shy little boy to a potential coup of the Trodain government.
Yeah.
As her father realized
there's an opportunity here.
There's an opportunity
that has never been presented before.
To call a vote and get the queen removed from her seat of power that otherwise was not a story beat that we were going to be able to explore.
No.
And I think that is so fucking cool that while there is the potential risk of letting your children into your cabinet and them knocking over shelves, a new bottle gets placed in and that shit is plated gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like re-glue the bottles back together.
Yeah.
With gold.
Because for me, behind the screen, I'm like, I knew that your father was like up to some fuckery, right?
Yeah.
And I knew kind of sort of the vaguest idea, which I cannot recommend enough as a DM to plan. I'm like, have the vaguest of ideas.
Yeah, truly.
Like, just because you've started the character arc doesn't mean you need to know exactly how that bitch is going to end. Because you have sessions to go. And as things develop in the session, you start being like, wait a second, let me...
Like, that makes sense.
If I just grab this little string and maybe this one, and I tie a nice little bow, and I'm like, I planned that from the beginning.
Yeah.
I knew exactly how that was going to go.
Yep.
You hear an idea that comes from a player, and you start writing while making eye contact with them and pretend you're not writing down, and you're like, yep.
Sure be a shame.
We did that. Planned from the beginning. Daddy knew that this was going to happen all along.
Yeah, suddenly that sticky note is a giant binder.
You're so welcome, princess.
Yes. But it was great because, I had a vague idea of something that, like, Urias might try to pull, but I didn't really know, like, the kind of
like
steps
how,
to get there. And as we went and as this little, like, relationship to set this happened, again, because of your choices, because of your roles, you rolled very good persuasion checks. Because I was like, this is going to be difficult to convince your parents because there is, again, generations of tradition.
Because in the lore of the world, we had decided that typically genasi are only canonically able to breed with other genasi. The one and only one exception to this rule is if a genasi breeds with another race in an elemental plane because they are primordial beings at heart. And that is the only time.
Yeah. And this is full homebrew. Nobody yell at me.
Yeah.
If
there's something against it in the thing.
This is me putting a card on the table and handing it to you as listeners, and it says I can do what I want.
Yeah,
and
truly.
deal with it.
And you're gonna run that Swanson.
Yeah. But and so like as those roles kind of resolved themselves, I had to do the thing where I had to sit with myself and my characters my NPCs and be like, okay, like this has happened. I have to honor your nat 20s and things like that. So I'm like, okay, what is the reason? Like, why would he agree? And then, like, yeah, the light bulbs start going off. The bottles are suddenly really pretty and on the shelf. And I'm like, okay, I see how we get here and I see what happens after. And so then now, like, this vague, hazy idea starts cementing itself and I see a path to it. And now we start having a little bit of a way to go.
Yeah, suddenly this Bridgerton x Game of Thrones plot that we had kind of been pulling ideas from solidifies.
Yeah.
And becomes a now major plot point in this story moving forward that we all have to deal with the consequences of.
Yeah.
What consequences? Nothing's about. They're just going to get married.
Yeah, she's just going to get married. We're going to end Kallista's arc with her getting engaged and moving on to the next character. And she's going to have no trauma and nothing bad is going to happen. And I'm certainly not going to get a comeuppance for playing in the cabinet.
We're just going to wear really pretty dresses and we're going to have a good time.
We're going to do some fit checks. We're going to spend 2 sessions in a ball and everything's going to be fine.
It's going to be more than 2 sessions, babe. No, we like a long ball. The last ball was like 3 sessions.
Oh, babe, we love a big ball.
It was meant to be 1 and 2 at max.
The last ball we did, I think, was like 5 sessions.
It was
3.
It was 3, yeah.
They were beefy boys.
It was beefy.
But they were long.
They were long sessions.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a time. But I guess the end result of your trial is I deem you innocent and I withdraw my
literally just a girl.
You're literally just a girl.
At the end of the day, Your Honor, I am simply just a girl.
Just trying to tell a story.
So what if I commit a war crime?
Or 2.
Or 8.
Hey.
Gotta chase your fun and your truth. Okay. But yeah, this has been great. Thank you for doing this and joining us.
This was so fun. Yeah.
Listen, we are all so used to gapping with each other anyways.
Yeah.
That this is just another little copy.
Same vibe. Yeah, same vibe.
If you ever wanted to know what the vibe is with us pre and post session, this is it.
This is it. This is the discussions.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.
Table Talk is a podcast brought to you by Mythos Media Productions, bringing you a new episode every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcast. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Table Talk RPG, or check us out at our website, mythosmediaproductions.godaddyscites.com. All business inquiries can reach out to us via email at info@mythosmediaproductions.com.